All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of The Real Deal Landman Show. I'm Jerris Johnson. We've got Drew Hopkins. We also have another Drew because you can never have too many Drews on a single episode of the show. So we've got with us today Drew Guntert and Julie Woodard. And then there might even be comment later on about another Drew. Well, I don't know how to tell, if I say Drew, I'm just going to get two whats every time. So I'll just go by last name. So Hopkins, if you would introduce our esteemed guests that we have with us today.
I am more than happy to. I know so many people that are listening in right now. You know both of these people. You know the names. You have seen them at different events. I have been fortunate to work alongside Julie back in the Chesapeake days, and it is an absolute pleasure to have both her and Drew on the show today. What's to say about Julie Woodard? Julie has been with Chesapeake since 2004. That's right. Mm-hmm. So 2004, she has done a little bit of everything. She has been on the OU board there, AAPL board member, Oklahoma City Professional Landman board member. She's on a board for the Edmond school system here in Oklahoma. And she has really been a staple of the land department for Chesapeake and Expand throughout so much. I mean, you've probably heard the term change management, I would say going on about 150,000 times at this point, right? But I entirely just respect Julie and everything that she's done. She's always been a voice just that I can reach out to talk land about. She even helped me with a college course that I was teaching a couple years back, and just have the utmost respect for her, as I know so many people do. And then I just saw yesterday for Heart Energy, you are a honoree for the 2025 Women of the Year. Is that right?
That is correct.
That's fantastic and well-deserved. Very, very well-deserved. And so I run down that entire list of all of those different things, and then I kick it over to Drew Guntert and I say, what the hell have you done?
Yeah, no, that's definitely a rough one to follow.
Have you been an influential woman of the year?
I attended the event one time when Leanne Callahan was up for it, and I got hushed in the back because I was talking too loud.
So Drew and I have known each other for quite a while, and it's actually been it's a blast every time I see him. He has helped with all of the events that you are familiar with here in the energy industry. Most particularly, he is the director of NAPE, and that is a huge, huge job. He is just always running around anytime you see NAPE going on, and so much planning has gone into that they do behind the scenes that it deserves so much credit. And the team that you have there is so fantastic, and we've been fortunate to work with them for quite a few years now. And I want to talk a little bit about its growth and everything here in a little bit throughout the show, but the main thing that I wanted you to know is to support you particularly. I did put on my blue Landman jacket today. And
man, thank God.
I figured, what better time to break out the blue blazer than whenever the guy that basically pushes the blue blazer. And this is all for you, man.
But he doesn't have it.
Right. And I don't. I left it at home. Actually, it's in the suitcase.
So I think, as you mentioned, we're at the 10 or 15,000 subscriber mark. Not really sure how many. It's like going up exponentially every minute. But there might be some people in that mix who don't know what NAPE is. And they may not even, are we talking about NAPE as in, is it a verb? Is it a noun? Is it an acronym? What is it? So give us a rundown in terms of what NAPE is, and if somebody were to go to NAPE, what would they expect to see?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I love hearing the different acronyms and even people arguing with me what the acronym actually means. But it is the North American Prospect Expo. The P is for prospect, which is always a tricky one.
What else would they think it is?
I heard patrol.
North American Petroleum Expo is the number one. I've even got a phone call. It's just the North American Pet Expo. It's varieties of different NAPE acronyms. We get a lot of different phone calls, but it is the North American Prospect Expo. And that's one thing too. I think NAPE's gotten so big that I do like to come back to all is the P's for prospects. And really what we're looking for is energy producing properties coming to market. We've all been to NAPE a ton of times. I live it every single day. The prospects are really what we look at to build the show because, we always want, when we're setting up the trade show floor or the expo floor, 70% is that we want prospects and we want capital in there. That's what separates NAPE from any event that I've ever seen in any industry. And then around, the other 30% is made up of vendors and service providers. So we really have a good split in between the prospects, but that's how NAPE started. Where it goes now is it's business conferences, it's job fairs, it's case studies. It's so much added on to that NAPE week. It's the other events outside of NAPE that go on that also just makes it feel so much bigger, which it really is a very unique industry event. And, it's one of the things too, you kind of look at yourself as a steward of this and you want to give a good show for industry professionals like yourself. But it's one of the things too, is we're always adding new elements to NAPE. But if you were going to be the first time, it's North American Prospect Expo. You really are coming to the launching point of energy producing properties for the industry for that year. So that's kind of NAPE in a nutshell now.
Is NAPE a trade show, and why or why not is it a trade show?
NAPE is an expo, my friend. So I feel like a trade show is going to be a lot more vendor service providers and stuff. You're going to go through, you're going to see nuts and bolts and stuff like that. I feel like the expo and all of the different elements that go onto that makes it more of an expo. An expo is where you can kind of showcase ideas, and I put the prospect exhibitors in there.
So you've been doing it since, 2008? Is that right?
No, since 2014. I came in to run the international portion of that because I was doing really international advertising at that time. And NAPE was trying to build up its international program. So I took an interview. I was at some training and there were some NAPE people, and I gave a little bit of a talk or an explanation on how you give temporary visas for people wanting to work and sell products in the United States. And NAPE approached me saying, hey, we got this big show. It's exploding. We're just trying to get people. We just lost the people that do our international programming and sales. Do you think you could come in and help us? So I come in and interview, and it was a different staff than there was here now. And I kind of look at the time frame, and the show was like 6 weeks, and they hadn't done any sales for the international program. And they're like, well, we don't know. You've never really done energy business. And I was like, guys, if you don't hire me right now, and I was like, you won't have anything that you've sold 10,000 tickets to show these people. And I was like, you guys are in a bad way, and I'm giving you gold right now. So I told them, I was like, I will do this, which I don't suggest anybody doing this. I was like, I will leave my job right now, and I will start working with you guys by the end of the week. And they're like, oh, you're giving me a lot to think about. And I was like, it was at that point where I was at pure panic for these folks, because I was like, how many attendees do you have? They're like, we had about 16,000 last year. And I was like, oh no. But I was hired on, and I was able to produce something in 6 weeks, which was crazy. And I've been there ever since.
Good night, man.
Wow.
That's a sterling resume of being able to get in there in 6 weeks and be able to kind of put together the intricacies that go into doing all of that are just absolutely. You shared with me sometimes whenever we've just been shooting the breeze at the conference, but it's absolutely insane what you and the rest of the team do there. And then throwing in, before I forgot, I wanted to give you guys the absolute utmost credit of during the COVID years of the way that you guys pivoted and made it to where it could be online. And it has to be out of the box thinking like that to continue, because think about these big expos that rely on getting people there physically for all of the ads, for all of the booths, for everything. And I think you all did a phenomenal job of being able to continue to reach out and continue to make that show the success it was, even in the absolute most difficult times.
Yeah, that was a lot, and we were dealing with a lot of turnover during that time too, because COVID was just a strange time for everybody. People were at home. They were finding themselves. They were moving to different positions. We had some staff members that their families had family businesses and stuff. And, they're like, hey, I always saw myself running my family's company. I think now is the time. It just gave people perspective. So we lost a lot of staff members. And, the people that hung with us, it was like day and night because we were also trying to get, evoke force majeure on a lot of contracts because we contract so far ahead. And, it was kind of like the principle was like there could be no tomorrow for these kind of events and stuff. So luckily, we have the city of Houston is great. And I will say is that they love NAPE and they support us. So they were completely understanding, got out of a lot of contracts, got able to push them. And then we did the virtual event. But I was happy to do it. But I'm glad it's over because, the virtual stuff just isn't the same.
And after the virtual stuff, these last few years, like I know what I've heard, and I know Jerris and I have talked about it before too, of the words "NAPE's back, baby" is what I've heard at a lot of the happy hours and everything of people really feeling kind of that buzz, that electricity of being down on Discovery Green and going in every bar, every hotel, seeing it packed out and seeing what, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like after we broke from COVID and we're coming back, like it seems like attendance has increased substantially these last couple of years, correct?
Yeah, it keeps ticking back up. The biggest thing too is that it's never going to feel the same post-COVID, post 2015. It's a different one, but I think it could be just as great in a different way. We keep adding in more verticals. You see on the hubs, you'll see the Bitcoin mining pop up one year, and then you see minerals and non-ops. You see the renewables and stuff. I think you'll see new exhibitors, new vendors, new types of attendees that are brought into the industry that need, the infrastructure of the upstream industry, and also too the people that need to be exposed to land professionals and the resources. Because there's a lot of people coming into the space, and I see the attendees all the time that are like, hey, can you put us with a Landman? And I was like, there's going to be literally thousands. Just reach out, and the person you touch is probably going to be a land professional.
Just look for a blue blazer.
Yeah, I'll look for a blue blazer.
That's right. That is right. Well, yeah, no, that was one of the things that I wanted to ask about too. And you already hit it of it really in the time I was looking back on how many years I've been to it and just the stories that I remember from just the absolute just excitement of those weeks and going through the trade show or the Expo floor and seeing all the different companies there and seeing new companies each year and now seeing the different things like, an area for podcast and an area for renewables, an area for Bitcoin, and seeing the attendance that is drawn to each one of those different places when they are, giving presentations and everything. And I absolutely love that. Like that's one of the biggest things for me in the industry of you and I started at Chesapeake in the same year and we've come through kind of full circle with everything. And I remember the years where it was just solely just so oil and gas focused. And I love that. But I also love to see how we're expanding ourselves out and how we are being innovative and how these absolutely just brilliant thinkers are finding different ways to incorporate that into the energy world. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And you guys have done a great job in putting that together.
Did you say there's a space for podcasts, Nate?
I've heard that rumor. Yeah,
there is.
That'd be kind of interesting.
That's interesting, isn't it? That's why I agree.
It is.
So I could do this. So I could go. For the people just listening, not seeing the video.
No. We're happy. Any podcasters, what we do is we do an endorser program because it's funny too, and that's like post-COVID. Remember, like industry publications, which industry publications are great. Pick up NAPE magazine, read it. But it's also too is that it's industry publications are moving to podcasts. So, we just want to be, like you said, is that we want to be relevant. It's verticals that we keep adding in and stuff. So we're always happy to support our media endorsers and stuff, especially too. We're all producing content, and that's really what NAPE is. It's a big piece of content for the industry. So want to make sure that any podcasters always have a friendly home at NAPE. And all they have to do is reach out to us and we'll take care of you.
It's a very politician-like response, Drew.
Thank you.
So the spotlight's been on Guntert a lot, talking about his role with NAPE. Julie also has a pretty significant role this year that is probably more behind the scenes that most people wouldn't realize. So I would like to hear Julie talk about what her role is with NAPE, especially this year, and like what goes into the work that is happening behind the scenes. You know, we see the actual production once we're there, but there's a lot of work that leads up to it in coordinating specific logistics and things like that. Tell us what is your current role, Julie, and what you do with NAPE, and what are some things that we can expect from your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So the chairman of the NAPE Operators Committee. And so the NAPE Operators Committee consists of a group of people that serve for, a certain period of time and represent different companies, different areas, different regions. And we work together along with Drew and his team to provide insights, supports, connections, resources, ideas. So it's easier on our side. I feel like Drew's got a different chairman and not a completely different committee every year, but sometimes. Yeah. So new people with new ideas. And so they do a really, really nice job of it's seamless. You can't tell. I mean, I can't tell from 1 year on a committee to now I'm the chairman. Drew's team and Drew just, they are so good at being flexible. Because, that's got to be hard too. And they're like, this is what they do every day. And this isn't what I do every day, right? I'm working in land and expand. So when I, pop onto a NAPE Operators Committee call, I mean, they've been working all week long, all year long on this show. And then they've got this new idea that either myself as new chairman or somebody else on the committee throws out there. So they do a good job of pivoting. And then also giving great political responses when we have bad ideas. But no, so we work with them. Basically, you can just think of it, the process for planning NAPE never stops. The show will happen, once the show happened last year in 2024, we immediately start planning for 2025. And probably the most important part from my perspective at the beginning of that planning process is talking as a committee, and sometimes it's a smaller committee, right? Your past chair and your current chair, and then whoever will be chair next year. Talk about, what types of content do we want there? Mainly you start with the business conference because that's a whole educational piece that's grown over time. That wasn't a thing when I first started going to NAPE. It was more about the expo and being there on the floor and networking and looking at the prospects, taking prospects. And now there's the whole education piece, which is the first day where you can go get continuing education and listen to some really great speakers, both on the business side and then on the technical side. And so we put together kind of an idea of what we think we want those ideas, those topics to be. And then we start brainstorming speakers, and then you start contacting speakers. And so that piece is going on. And then we've got several other aspects of NAPE that Drew alluded to that we start talking through and planning. But yeah, so that's kind of our role, more or less, is to kind of to be that industry connection with their great ideas. But I mean, you have to keep changing and evolving, and all the things you mentioned that are being added above just the prospects and the types of attendees that we get, the renewable hub, the Bitcoin, the minerals and non-op, like all of that is something that just each year, as there are new things, that's being talked about by both the committee. The committee will have great ideas. There's committee members that have very, very, very awesome ideas that we'll throw out, and then Drew and his team get things from all over the place too. So it's a good kind of joint relationship to make sure that we're bringing the most relevant topics and ideas to the show. So,
fantastic.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, the landmark of NAPE was the Chesapeake double-decker booth.
Yeah.
So I just got to throw the question, did you ever go on the second floor?
I did, but it might have been by mistake. There was like a chain that was up, and if that chain was up, it meant because somebody might have been up there working on a deal. So I did venture up there. I think at one point it was probably kindly asked to leave. And Jerris, was that still when you were at Chesapeake? Was that booth still there and a thing?
Oh, yeah, I went on the second floor, and I did deals on the second floor.
There you go.
Now, I will say on more than one occasion, I was on the second floor trying to work on a deal, and a higher exec, whose name I won't say, but everybody will probably know who it was, would like look at me with this disdain of, who is this peon that dare cross my territory? But I mean, the second floor was there. It had to be used for more than just taking pictures. And he wasn't using it other than drinking coffee.
And Drew could speak to it too. You've probably seen some absolutely insane booths, and it's got to be kind of fun to see the different things that people, the creativity that people come with.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It is fun to see like some of these, and I mean, and the stuff in NAPE, it's great and it's creative. But going to some different oil shows and stuff, there are some monsters out there. OTC and stuff, you see full cities, 3 stories, stuff that, I mean, fire marshal has to come in and walk through it for 2 days. There's some stuff out there that is pure insanity, but I'm not a big fan of it because that's usually someone from our staff or sometimes even myself having to sit outside a door with security and stuff while guys work throughout the night. And then
I don't know if there are actual like restrictions that have been put in place, but I mean, when I first started attending NAPE back when I was actually a student, was my first trip down there. And there were some things that you would see and encounter on the floor that you do not see now.
Well, yeah. I remember my first few shows.
Yeah, I would say that's improved. It's now at a more, I'll say, professional, and what the show is supposed to be about is what it reflects now, in my opinion.
Just generally speaking, what are things in recent years that you have had to say you can't do that, or that you've had to say no to?
There's got to be something good.
Give us some dirt.
I mean, it's amazing the questions I get. I used to write them down in a journal, but it's gotten so far. I actually probably need to start doing that again. So, exotic animals are the ones that always catch me off guard and stuff. A lot of falcons. Someone always has a falcon that they want to bring in and do a hunting display. So falcons are big. This past week and stuff, we had a French company, a vendor come in, and they want to do a 1,000-gallon swimming pool, which I Googled, that's a decent sized swimming pool. That's
pretty good.
That's a pretty good size one.
You can order. What's the deal?
But they have a product that goes underwater and they want to show it everybody. So, those good ones. I did have probably the one that stands out the most, and I don't know why it was, is that there was an exhibitor that wanted to do a WCW style wrestling contest in the middle of NAPE. And I was like, don't you feel like that's like borderline unprofessional? And the guy was like, no, it's going to be awesome, Drew. And he's like, I just need to know what insurance looks like and everything like that. So that was probably the strangest one.
I think the creativity that people come up with, everything from the falcons to just like in last year, I would say the guy that brought the electronic dinosaur that people could jump on and ride. I mean,
yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was pretty good.
That is I don't want to say that we've entered into like that viral era, but we all know that we have, right? And everybody likes to get a good picture with something. Everybody likes to be the booth that people have kind of a line for. And it's stuff like that just absolutely, it sells, or, it gets attention. And it's fun to see going into the NAPE floor and seeing what people are getting creative with, how they are trying to stand out. And that's the name of the game. I mean, the whole where deals happen, you get more deals happening whenever you are making yourself really stand out. And I think it's super fun. I think it's absolutely super fun. And jokes aside, anytime we would pass anything to Drew and his team, they don't shoot stuff down. They always come back with about, 10 different ways that they can help make something work for you. And so if you've got a good idea, that's the time to pitch it to them, because they want to help. They want to help make you successful, and they want to help make the show just absolutely shine. So I totally appreciate that. Wrestling,
I appreciate it, but and I love the marketing element. I love when people go big on their booths. It's fun, and it's really too is that we think about this content when we're putting together, like Julie and us and committee, and we think about all these different elements, and I always feel like, well, it feels weak. We need more and stuff. But then I kind of look at the trade show floor and I see, 500 exhibitors. And I was like, each one of those is going to have a special activation in their booth that's why people are coming. So there's only so much that we can sponsor, so many tops we can do. But then, I look at booths like you've sponsored throughout the years, and I'm just like, well, I know Drew's going to do something special that's really going to add to the show. So every single exhibitor adds to this show. And it's something too that I always try to be more aware of. That I was like, well, there's a lot of cool stuff on the trade show floor. And, and 85% of people are just going to hit up that expo floor. So always want them to have a good time. So I appreciate exhibitors like you going the extra mile. Makes a big difference for us.
Heck yeah. No, it's fun.
I do have one more NAPE question, the sweepstakes, which is at the final hour of the event, there's always a drawing for some massive prize that people can get. Any behind the scenes stories or things with the sweepstakes that people might not be aware of?
Well, before that, I would like you guys just to go around the room and just see your personal feelings on the sweepstakes. Like I always kind of hear rumors and stuff, and I always hear like echoes from the crowd, just like, it's rigged or all these things. So I just want your guys' feelings as people that have been up to win it every single year. So let me know, and then I'll answer the question.
We'll go first. And I want to say, knowing Drew as long as I have, I absolutely believe in my soul. It is rigged. And he has promised me, you will win this each year for maybe the last 8 years. I don't know. And haven't seen that come to fruition yet, but that's okay. But I do believe that there's some professionalism there, that he is not wanting to play favorites, and he wants to definitely open it up to everybody. Now, what I do like about it, what Julie said just a second ago, is you have to stay till the end. And for whatever reason, at this point in my life, I get great joy and excitement out of knowing whenever people have lost out on a wonderful opportunity. So whenever you read a name and we all are looking at our clocks and counting down that minute that they have to make themselves known, and you get to about the 45-second mark, like, I don't have children, but I would equate that probably to the excitement of the birth of a child. I'm like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. And then, all that person's friends are texting them and being like, oh, you missed out on something great, just like something like that. I always like the different things that come up. Like one year it's like a Jeep, one year it's a Razor, one year so you never really know what it's going to be until you get there. And it's always something really cool. And you can tell people get really excited about it. And I think that that's one of the cool things of giving prizes and giving things to the attendees that they're pumped about. So I always like it. I think you do a really good job with it. And I always see the smile on your face because you always seem to be the guy that gets to drive it through the arena to get it to the spot. And so I know you like that. Don't act like you don't.
Do. I love it. I love everything about it. Julie?
Yeah. So like I mentioned, you do have to stay there till the end. And so I think that is something that maybe people don't know or fully understand. I know there's a lot of people that do like head out for that. So I personally have not ever won anything. So, but I do think it's always, like you said, just something interesting to,
Do you also hold Drew responsible for you not winning?
No.
Okay. Well,
no, I don't. I hold myself responsible. I'm not so sure I've actually.
We're not crinkling the card up enough when we put it in. Yeah. That's what we're not doing. There's a certain science to that, I feel like. Jerris, what do you think?
So I am a natural pessimist. Most of the time, I don't even put my card in because I figure, what's the point? However, I usually stay till the end because, for those who don't know, I don't drink, but what I lack in alcohol, I make up for in sugar. And usually at the time they do the drawing, they bring out the little ice cream freezer. And that's so right. I stick around just to get an ice cream sandwich. And then if no one's looking, I'll also go back and get a drumstick. And I'm really just there to eat the ice cream treats that come out at the end.
We are all working on seeing if we can get a new Jeep with a nice light bar. And Jerris is just as happy to get 2 drumsticks and a nice as the rest of us would be getting a Jeep.
Yeah, I like Jerris. I'm looking to put a camera up. I like Jerris is like, well, they're all looking towards the stage. Now it's my time to strike.
I'm going to get another one. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, that is my sweepstakes, is not only did I do, it's kind of the honor system. Everybody just take one so that there's enough for everybody. And at the time they're about to roll out the name, I go grab a second because everyone's distracted. And
well, I'll clarify a few things about the sweepstakes. So it really started because we were starting to get a lot of people breaking down, especially during summer NAPE. But it was, half the room was divided. There's a thought process is you should find them. And I was like, so we're going to upset everybody that we do business with on the last minute of the show, and then we're going to send them home, and then we're going to try to ask them to come back and exhibit for next year. And I was like, that's probably not our strategy. So we kind of pivoted, and we're like, what if we gave them a reason, a really special reason to come back? So they're like, it was like, we could give something away. We could give them ice cream. And that was kind of a joke. And then we're like, yeah, we're like, maybe that'll work. So we did it with one summer NAPE, and I was just like, hey, we're not going to put much money into this. We're going to go, I think it went out and got like a $4,500 four-wheeler. This was just a low-level four-wheeler. I don't even think it was a NAPE brand, and it was just like a sea of people. And I was like, okay, this is definitely going to work. And then the next year, I think it was NAPE's 30th anniversary, we did the F-150, and that was the first one. And it was just, we were floored. I think we still have pictures of it, and just sea to sea people. And I was like, this is just an F-150, but it was fun. I think we did champagne that year. We rolled out the ice cream, and it was just a super positive. And, the big reason we do it for the exhibitor base. So one, you keep your booths up, but also two, it brings back some attendees. It gives you guys a good feeling. And remember too, is that everybody's registered to win. So if you're taking a booth and your exhibitor, you put it in, the only people that can't win are like committee members. I'm sorry, Julie. I think you're one of the only people that can't win. It does meet Texas gaming regulations and all those things, because that is something when you do a sweepstakes, you have to check all those balances and all those good things. So it doesn't qualify as illegal gambling. So we're good on that one. But it is a blast, and it's a lot harder than you think it is, because NAPE actually hits an attendee level where we start like that we're on like a national advertising like range, where if we want a Dodge or a Ford pickup truck, like we have to go through like the national rep, and we have to be see who has that territory. So there are some hoops to jump through every year, because every once in a while I'll get hooked up with a product and we just don't have a territory in Houston. We can't give it.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I actually dealt a little bit with that in a former job, so I kind of knew how it worked. So, we get it every single year. Julie, you'll be the one that'll give it away this year. It's on the level. The only thing I would say, the only hint I would give people is don't crinkle your ticket. And that's a bad strategy.
My is crumbling around me right now.
It looks when they go in and Julie reaches in, I mean, Julie may be different, but it just looks like you're trying just a little too hard.
It's desperate.
You wouldn't be looking. I would do this, right? Like, you're not supposed to.
Yeah. I mean, it looks there and stuff, but you still kind of feel it there.
I mean, if we're full transparency, it is a bit of desperation on my part. Like I'm sitting there sweating as I got this thing filled out. I'm bending the corners just right. I'm like, oh, surely this is my year. Like, totally, this is my year. And yeah, it just doesn't happen. But now that Julie's doing this thing, I've got a little bit more faith. But I love it's on the up and up. We've heard it here. This is big information. Following the Texas gambling,
and we do the 60 seconds. And I have had people come at 62 seconds, and they don't get that prize. You have to be in that hall to win.
Whoa.
Yeah, you have to be in the hall. If you're outside the hall and you don't hit that 60 seconds, I've heard like people saying like, she's running down the sidewalk trying to get here. Can you hold? And I'm like, no, if I can't physically see her in 60 seconds, we have to move on to somebody different.
Whoa.
That lady, it was a lady, and she was upset with us after the event. But
hey, rules is rules. That's right.
Yeah, I follow my T's and C's to the letter. I mean,
I love it. Well, that's a great rundown of NAPE. I mean, like I had questions for you. You've answered all of them. Julie, I just really wanted to very quickly kind of go through like your background. This is the Landman, the Real Deal Landman show. I'm sure you've said it 100 times before, but give us, what was the reason that you got into land in the first place?
Yeah, so I was in college working on my undergraduate degree at Oklahoma State University. Thought I was going to go to law school. Graduated, was going to go to law school, and I have had family and still have family in the business, not as Landman, but doing other things, and had some connections to OU's energy management program. And so before I enrolled at University of Tulsa for law school, I went and had a meeting with the current director of the program at the time was Ted Jacobs. And as we talked through my interests and what the program offered, and like contract law was something about law. That's what I was most interested in.
Gotcha.
And so as we started going through, like, here's what a landman does, and this is kind of what it looks like. There were pieces of that absolutely resonated with me, that I thought I absolutely want to do that, and I can not take on all this debt to go to law school. So I thought that sounds great. So I went back to school at OU for energy management, went through the program and started interviewing just like all the other students would do in the fall. I guess it was 2004. And at that point in time, there were fewer students, more jobs. And so lots of interest in, I guess, I already had a degree. And so I had several opportunities to go work at different places. And so I interviewed with several companies around Oklahoma City, and Chesapeake being one of them, and had several conversations with the leaders at the time at Chesapeake, and decided to start working there full-time during school, which led then to full-time at the company. And so I've been there ever since. And it's been all that I expected, plus a lot more.
I totally hear you on that. We are, I don't want to say that like the guest of the show, there's so many Chesapeake connections, but in the oil and gas industry, if you talk to anybody from any company, you are inevitably going to run into Chesapeake connections. What I like about yours is this is really your story from very first, right out of college, all the way to now. I mean, this many years later, and you have seen so many different things. I mean, you could write multiple series of a book on, I'm sure, every experience that's gone on there. Kevin Decker is one of the people that we have here at Novus, and he was with Chesapeake for 30 years. And he and I were on a business trip. We were driving to Midland. And, whenever you've got the long drives, you're talking about a little bit of everything. And one of the things that we hit on was, I said, well, tell me about some of your past jobs. Like, tell me some of the other jobs that you had in your life. And he said, well, I can't, because I've only had one job. I only worked at Chesapeake, and that was it. I worked at Chesapeake and then here. So I love that you have seen so much there. What were some of the things that you have, I don't want to say has changed, because there has been so much change, but what have you seen in becoming that leadership role with Chesapeake? What are some of the things that you felt that you've been able to bring to that over the last 20 years?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, as everybody knows, Chesapeake has seen a lot of change. I don't think they're unique in that, right? There's plenty of companies that, I mean, that's what our industry is. So there's change every day, all the time, everywhere. I think there's obviously a lot of focus on Chesapeake, obviously very, very active, and had obviously very high rig counts, high number of employees. So, lots of change. And I would say, I've worked at one company, but it feels like it's actually, you could probably segment it into at least 3 or 4,
at least,
from just different periods of time and what we were actually doing, what our strategy was, right? Whether it's grow, optimize, headed through bankruptcy, coming out of bankruptcy, and now maybe more, you could say, in more of a growth mode. And so just different phases in that. I think having experience in all of those different phases is helpful to any organization, because you do have perspectives, and you can pivot, and you can change, and you can think innovatively. You have to. And I think, I mean, Jerris was there, you were there. I mean, talking about the Chesapeake connections, everyone you talk to has had some piece in that. And so you can relate to that. I think, I wouldn't say anything I've had specifically, that I would want to call out that I think I've contributed or whatnot, but just having, perspectives, having a seat at the table, at being able to offer ideas and perspectives, and kind of help shape what some of those outcomes of some of those changes have been, has probably been what I've enjoyed at least the most about it. So
that's fantastic. In the different areas that you have led, what were the different
geographic areas? So, I started there working in the Mid-Continent, which felt very appropriate,
right,
being from Oklahoma and living here. And so worked the Mid-Continent, and then from there I worked several different areas in the Mid-Continent, and then I went to work in the Rockies for a little bit, and then became a leader at that point in time. And so I moved back to kind of oversee the land function for the Mid-Continent. And then was moved over to manage and oversee the activities in the Marcellus and the Utica when we had that at the same time. And now it's Northeast Appalachia, which is essentially the Marcellus post our merger with Southwestern.
That's fantastic. That's another entire line that we could get down on. Anytime you guys have acquired a company, anytime any company has acquired, there's so much that goes along with that data, specifically being able to get that in. And so I know that you and your team have been absolutely fantastic on being able to know through multiple acquisitions exactly what you need to better position yourself going forward in this growth mode that you're in now.
Yeah, that's right.
It's fantastic. Jerris, did you have any questions there? Sorry, I've been hogging the time here. I forgot about you two. Have you guys still been on this? That's wonderful.
Yeah, we're still here. No, I always admire somebody who is able to, persevere with a company even through dramatic ups and downs, and that's definitely something that Julie has done with Chesapeake, ever changing, very dynamic company, and now with a large merger, new name, new experience, and is still there, and has definitely proven herself as a clear leader within the organization. I think it's pretty cool and something I've got a lot of respect for.
I mean, change is hard, but with it comes so many opportunities for everybody, right? And so sometimes that's hard to get past over the years. That's probably been the hardest thing, is just, for the whole company, right, to move and pivot. But then once you do, and you look at the broader, bigger picture, I mean, there's so many more opportunities from a business standpoint. So that's kind of, you've got to balance how you look at those things.
That's right. And you see different changes of, like, the teams that you've worked on. You've been having to formulate how we can best move forward with people that we're bringing in. And that's a very difficult thing, but for the right leaders like Julie and the rest of the team there, it's pretty neat to be able to see how they can put different positioning in place and it continue to, really elevate everyone around.
Well, and I would say too, I'm very excited about the leaders that I'm getting to work with that are coming in from the SWN side, the legacy SWN side. Some top-notch guys that, hopefully you guys will get the opportunity to meet and talk to as well on the land side. So I think it's the merger process, in my opinion, so far is going really, really well. And I think we truly have done and accomplished what we set out to do, and that's combine two great companies and kind of take the best of the best and put everybody together. And we will have a new expanded
booth.
And it will be bigger and different. So
4 floors.
That. It will not be that. No, it will not. So we're all about thinking about what is our purpose.
That's right. That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. Well, guys, speaking of thinking about purpose and speaking of thinking about, like, the right thing being done in the field, did you guys watch the last episode of Landman on Paramount?
I'm behind a couple, I have to be honest.
Well, I don't want a spoiler warning for you. So at any point, if you want to cover your ears, you can, but we're going to spoiler this thing like crazy. That's what we're going to do.
So for what Julie has seen of the show, there are so many things that the land and energy community are seeing about this show, and they're saying that's totally outlandish, outrageous. Those are things that have never happened and never will happen. But in conversations that I've had with a couple folks, I have heard those stories of, well, actually, I did deal with something that was similar to this. And I think those are a lot of stories that we want to be able to uncover throughout our own series. Are there things that seem so crazy in Hollywood and television that they seem totally made up or fabricated, but in reality, maybe they have happened? And so, Julie, from your perspective, is there something that has stood out in the show that, as crazy as it seems, you have had a similar experience to what we saw?
Yeah. So I think we talked a little bit about this weekend. I mean, let's talk about it, not just for fun, but like, are there things and what concerns us, and do we, that kind of thing. And, I did not watch the preview, which a lot of people did. And so when I watched the first episode, I think I went into it, I had a lot of feedback from people that were potentially up in arms a little bit about, hey, this isn't representative of what we do. And so I went into it thinking that, and it's 100% dramatized, as they would expect it
absolutely
to be. But at the same time, there are situations that, you're dealing with landowners royalty owners who you don't get to go pick. It's not like you get to go pick, the most professional person down the street that you do a deal with. That's not how that works. And so I think everybody understands that, but you never know what you're going to encounter. And there absolutely have been instances, and I won't go into detail about any of them specifically, but there absolutely have been instances where we've had issues where we have to call our surface landman most, 9 times out of 10 to say, hey, we have this issue. This is occurring. Can you go out and have a conversation? Can you contact them? Can you help? That is typically the person that gets called upon. So yes, that is the case. And, there have been some wild and outlandish things that just surprise me.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I mean,
sure.
Somebody shooting at somebody, that has happened. There's a lot of different things. Jerris and I were sharing some stories over the weekend about a few, just, you always have something different. And so I do think it's actually somewhat representative of what we do, not collectively what we do, what people in the field would more so encounter with, I think, not what a landman in Oklahoma City at a corporate office is going to deal with per se. So, and so to say it's completely off the rails, probably not. I mean, do we deal with the exact types of things that, no airplanes are landing on any of our roads that I'm aware of, but I mean, who knows? It could happen. It would not surprise me.
Okay. So, got some late breaking news as we were doing this. My wife sent me a text and pointed out that Mr. Billy Bob Thornton has been nominated as Best Actor in a Drama Series for a Golden Globe. So, getting some credibility towards the TV show. Although it does say that they're hoping that this nomination will help the odds for a season 2. So, I don't know if that means that season 2 is in jeopardy or what that extra commentary was about. But
season two's definitely happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's an interesting, there's a lot going on, as everybody knows, with just, I think, the political landscape, new administration, what our industry, what that means for our industry, the timing of this show. I think there's a real opportunity for the land profession specifically because we kind of have a little bit of a platform that maybe we haven't had in the past. So feelings aside of whether you like the show or not, that's out there.
For sure.
And so I think it's an opportunity for every one of us that represent the land profession within the energy industry to educate peers, friends, others. Again, you'll see some of that at NAPE, tying this back to NAPE, but you'll see some of the speakers that we have, and Chris Wright is one that we've got slotted. And, obviously when he committed to that, he had not been appointed by President Trump to be the Secretary of Energy. A lot of attention, I think, that is going to be on our profession and NAPE, and it's kind of just all coming together at the same time. So I think it's a real opportunity, feelings aside about the show.
I mean, and that really was, whenever Jerris and I have talked about doing this, it is an opportunity for conversation. It's an opportunity for conversation and education, and that's why we wanted to do this. There's so many eyes on it, and we talked about last time of how many people have looked at like the AAP website and looked at what a landman is, and like just even looking how many people are just very inspired to check out an industry that they weren't familiar with before. I love that. I absolutely love that, and so I'm so glad that we get to talk about it. We get to have some fun on here. We get to talk about a show that's got some really positive parts, some pretty outlandish parts, but fictionalized, and hope that in the end that brings more of a positive vibe to the entire sector. So it's exciting.
Drew, take us to the hot points.
Well, I'll tell you, the first thing that I noticed was I was like, is Demi Moore going to have any lines in this episode? And absolutely not. She will not.
Never will.
Halfway through the season, and I don't know if she will talk at all.
That is a weird one. Like, really, being updated on the episodes, I was like, she's completely not in this thing.
Good for her on signing that contract, though. I think she got to swim in a pool one episode, and then she gets to give kind of knowing side eyes to people, and that's it. That is acting range, is what that is.
Yeah,
that's good.
That's easy money.
That's easy money. We should all be so lucky at some point in our career. We find out even before the title scenes roll, the ex-wife, Angela, still being a bit of, and I don't know if hot mess is the right word for it, but being a bit of a hot mess. She has this need to cause immediate chaos wherever she goes, and now she's decided to renovate the house for no reason. And her daughter, Ainsley, I believe, has still, unfortunately, misplaced most of her clothes. And we're going to hope that in future episodes, she finds those clothes. I'm not holding out too much hope, guys. Title screen goes on. We get all of that goodness before the title screen happens. Go right into Cooper, son of Tommy. I tried to map out, and I really do need to bring my wife on sometime because she is so over. She is so over watching me overanalyze these episodes. I have a timeline of what I believe from the start of the plane crash through when she comes in for spring break, when the wife flies in, when we have the accidents on the field. And I think we're at 13 days is the longest that it could potentially be. When I was over explaining this to my dear wife sitting on the couch, the look of absolute frustration and potential divorce in the future was evident. But I will tell you, my points were heard. I stand by them. And at some point in the future, we will go over this timeline. The wonderful thing is that Cooper is going over to help the Ariana, who is the young lady who lost her husband on the first blowout. This is, by my count, about 5 days after that blowout happened. So he goes over to help her with some bills and stuff. We shoot back. Monty's sitting in New York City or Fort Worth or somewhere. And this is the other viral moment. We had last week or 2 weeks ago, we had where he was the second episode where Tommy was talking about the wind turbines and how everything in the industry needs petroleum. Everything in our life demands petroleum. And how many times did we see that on LinkedIn afterwards? A ton. I feel like this is the next one that we're going to see. And that is Monty being very upfront with the overseas investors of whenever they're talking about going toward renewables. I've already seen it twice this morning, is why I would mention this. That is put in there with purpose for sure. And so that's going to be the one. But the thing that was interesting was whenever a guy at that meeting leaned over to Monty or John Hamm at the end and said, just remember that the party is ending. And I think that's something that we could go down that rabbit hole for a long time when it comes to oil and finding another venture. I also don't know exactly how Monty is in these meetings whenever MTEX, his company, has been absolutely plagued with everything under the sun. Good for him on still holding strong and showing up. And that's true leadership right there. I'm going back to Cooper and Ariana. They are now madly in love. Manuel, her cousin, pulls up and he absolutely hates. A long time ago, a gentleman told me, he said, just remember one word in life is never mow another man's lawn. Yeah. And no truer words spoken in this episode. Cooper goes out, mows the lawn for her. Manuel sees this, pulls a gun on Cooper, which is a pretty normal thing to do. Ariana decides 5 days is long enough. She kisses Cooper, which is great. And it's going to be a rough patch for Cooper going forward. We've got everything from Rebecca, the lawyer, comes in and she talks about settling up with the lawsuits that we had. Jerris, you made some notes on that, didn't you?
Yeah, by the way, her name is Rebecca.
Rebecca.
I think in the last episode, you were very adamant that her name was Rachel.
I know.
I had no idea where you were pulling that out, but I didn't want to call you out in front of the listeners. I wanted to wait until today. And so, her name is Rebecca. You completely butchered that the last episode.
I'll butcher Tommy at some point too. So just wait for that.
Yeah, no, I mean, so they're obviously with the in-house lawyer, they're talking about what is the right amount of money to pay for this loss of life. And there are differing opinions in terms of, are they being fair? And I have interacted with in-house attorneys before that are dealing with similar situations, and they've got to figure out the amount of money to give this family for something terrible that happened. And I don't know how do you put a value on someone's disability or on someone's life? And there's a careful balance, because on one hand, you do want to take care of that family, but on the other hand, you can't give the family the entire company. I feel like no matter what I'm going to say here, it's going to really make people angry, or it's going to come off the wrong way, other than just to say it's a really, really complicated scenario. And it's hard to rush to an immediate judgment as to what the right thing or wrong thing to do is in that situation.
And I do not doubt the conversations very close to what we saw have happened, and they continue to happen. And that's just one of those things that it's a very, very tough part of the business.
In the show, we continue to see overusage of the term "the patch."
Mm-hmm.
So I can't say that I've ever used the term "the patch" significantly. I have reached out to some people in the Midland area to ask how often they use the term the patch, and I'm not exactly sure where the show pulled this out. Now, you might hear people from time to say like the oil field or the oil patch, but just to go straight to the patch, we're taking some creative liberties on this one.
I think that comes from Boomtown, the podcast.
Okay.
They do toss around the patch quite a bit in Boomtown, which, was kind of the inspiration for the show. So, I recently re-listened to those and stuff. I had a car trip to Houston, and I hit up a few of those. And I do remember that the patch is something that he really likes to use in that podcast.
Okay.
It is.
Well, that explains it then.
Well, Tommy's daughter got invited to a patch party. The patch,
Yeah.
I never got invited to a patch party. Being from Enid as Jerris and being from Ponca City as me, we got invited, I'm sure, to quite a few parties that were out in the field and in the middle of nowhere. But I never got to be around very dangerous oil equipment. And I can only think that there will be zero drama that comes from the inevitable patch party.
Does a patch party include riding a pumping unit?
Absolutely, it does. Absolutely, it does. It's going to happen. Write that down now. That will be 100% happening in the next episode.
I'm excited to see Victor, the current husband, because I feel like there's been like two things missing. He's been referenced in so much. So I think, I don't want to spoiler, but I am going to do it. I think that's Andy Garcia, the actor who's going to play that. And I think that also is going to lead into the emergence of the big bad. We don't have a main bad guy yet. Well, I don't know. No. I'm just saying is that I think there hasn't been a main bad guy. There's no big bad. I mean, everybody has a big bad, and that hasn't shown up, and we're this many episodes in, and that's a pretty good actor for big bad. I mean, the Ocean's movies, he plays a good business bad guy.
I think once he gets the credit card statement from Angela's furniture spending, that could easily turn Victor into a bad guy.
I also don't mean to turn this into like a therapy session, but I feel like we do need to say it from what we know about Angela and the credit card spending. And also, I just think everybody on this show would benefit from like a 30-minute counseling session once every week and a half, and for Tommy and Angela to get right back together in a matter of just minutes, and then her immediately turn into a bit abusive, a wide range of emotions, going from very happy to very sad. Do you think that Victor, whenever he finds out she's like, I'm going back to my ex-husband, is there a little bit of relief there of, I'll pay for the furniture. That sounds great. Maybe it's just one scene of Andy Garcia being like, where's the papers? That sounds great. This is wonderful news.
I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's more of a respect issue for him. That's what I'm thinking. These are theories and predictions, but I think that we're going to have a bad guy, the main bad guy that's going to go against MTech's wage war. And I think it's going to start getting heated in the second half of the season.
Interesting. I do feel like it's just a daily account of his life right now. So it's
you need it.
Yeah.
Well, we did have in going to the big bad or going to a big conflict, whenever Tommy and Dale and the guy boss were out checking on the wells, the cartel comes, and Jimmy, who Tommy referred to him as Jimmy, which he did not like that, mentioned that they owed $30 million for the drugs that were lost from that drug delivery. Tommy, being very diplomatic and wanting to calm it down, completely just assassinated him as much as he could verbally, probably escalating it further. And the guy Jimmy said, "You don't want to meet my boss." So there could be a cartel boss in the future. Nobody's working on that field where they're gonna go back through and they're gonna rework some wells until Tommy gets that figured out. So Tommy's gonna go and he's gonna see Monty in Fort Worth. We go back to that house, the rental house, I guess, and in a one-day span, we have had complete renovation. Complete walls have been repainted. Every bit of carpet has been taken up. It's hardwood floors. We've had a 100% renovation of this house, all in a span of 24 hours. And Angela has cooked a wonderful dinner for everyone. So that is impressive. And even by Midland standards, I don't know what moving company is used for that, but Absolutely. Hats off to him, and great reviews online. Angela, again, this is one of those things where she starts out pretty happy. She gets a little upset. She likes seeing her family together, but there's a lot of discontent, I think, by Tommy and by Cooper. She runs into the kitchen. He runs in after. He ends up getting punched. That's fine, and that seems pretty on par for their relationship. Cooper drives home from this, and he gets back to the place where he's staying out in the patch, and opens the door, and wouldn't you know it, Manuel and his friends are waiting for him, not for a nightcap, but to beat the just ever-loving tar out of him. He gets beaten, like crazy, and that's pretty much the end of we see of him, probably dead, maybe another casualty here. Anything that you guys noticed on those?
So in past episodes of our show, Drew Hopkins, you have mentioned of being inundated with API commercials.
Yes.
And so I looked into that a little bit, found that API, American Petroleum Institute, they haven't given the exact number, but they have said that they have spent 7 figures on advertisements to go along with the Landman TV show, in order to get their side of the story and their perspective and what they deem important to be on there. I'll just say that if the API would like to save a little bit of money, that they can run ads during our podcast, and
That's
that
right.
we'll take it for just 6 figures.
6 is fine.
Yeah. So
There's
for just 6 figures of spend instead of 7 figures of spend, the API can still get their important message.
And we mentioned it early on. The reasons why we started this was to educate the industry, to bring focus on the truth in a lot of this thing. But the third thing that I didn't mention earlier was Jerris and I need to become extremely wealthy.
Yes.
And we are far behind on this.
To us, growing up in Enid and Ponca City, 6 figures is extremely wealthy.
I will retire with that. And that's even
Yes. Yes.
I will completely retire. No, that brings up anybody that wants to sponsor, write The Real Landman at wherever that is. Contact Jerris, contact myself. Back in the final few moments of the show, Tommy is going to Fort Worth. Angela is now very happy because this is her way. So she is riding to Fort Worth to have a face-to-face with Victor, which will go just swimmingly. Tommy needs to talk to Monty about reworking these wells and about the cartel issue. They get a phone call from a very, very unhappy guy in the field who has just been delivered a pipe truck where the pipes of all different sizes have all been mingled together, and he's really unhappy about it. Tommy says, we're going to take a detour. He goes off. They're only 10 minutes from there. As we know, all the wells and all the pad sites in Midland are about 10 minutes from each other. I'm sure, right? I mean, not hours away from each other. But he's right there. As he shows up, and this was one of those things where even my wife, who is not in on, the safety of oil and gas, the first thing she says is, why on earth is he standing on top of the pipes on the truck? Soon as those words are uttered from her lips, what happens? The pipes fall. They end up crushing this man. So we have had an entire rig crew exploded. We have had a man's hand crushed in epic fashion. We can probably put in Tommy cutting off his own pinky finger. And now all within, and again, the Drew Hopkins timeline that will be displayed at some point, we are well within the 15-day mark. And we have now had a man crushed by pipes. He tried to call his significant other and she didn't pick up. But he has now unfortunately passed away, which I don't know if that's going to throw off this trip to Fort Worth, but I feel like Dale, our guy in the field, no matter what happens, Dale likes to keep that thing running. So, I mean, he may just say, let's just keep moving, boys, and we'll deal with that tomorrow. So we ended with Cooper knocked out in his trailer. We ended with Tommy absolutely looking at just another catastrophe that he's going to have to deal with since he is running on everything. MTEX, oil and gas, struggling a bit right now. Where do we go from here? We're midway through the season.
I feel like we've been left with a big cliffhanger.
I think it's big cliffhanger. Yeah, it was kind of the mid-season, season finale. And a guy that's actually, you guys haven't noticed yet, but I am sitting in the same office they were sitting in season 4. Episode 4. So take a look. Yeah. But I think the show it's interesting. I liked this episode because I think it set up a lot of good stuff. it is a fun show to watch. But I do think, kind of going back to my original series thing, thinking that we are going to see a bad guy appear in the next episode, and it's going to be great. And I hope Cooper pulls through.
And we all do. We're all rooting for the kid. I mean, he's been nothing but absolute a plague to every crew he's worked on around at some point. The last thing that I would say, and it's what Jerris mentioned at the very beginning, and you know how much we dive into these and the meticulous research we do on each episode. And did anyone see the Drew Barrymore interview with our Billy Bob Thornton?
Yeah, I saw.
All right, Drew knows what we're talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Let's let Drew and Drew talk about Drew then.
So Tommy or Billy Bob Thornton was on the Drew Barrymore show the other day, and the clip goes, she said, you like women's jeans, is that correct? And he said, I've got some on right now. And he said, the reason I don't like men's jeans are that they're too baggy. I've got these bird legs, which I can relate. I've got these bird legs, and I feel like I'm in a tent. And she said, you like a nice fit? And he said, I like a nice fit. They fit great with these boots. The ones I have are a women's size 6 Levi's. And Drew Barrymore says, size 6 Levi's, I couldn't get my right butt cheek in those. And that caused a really funny stir online, and people were absolutely just losing it of Billy Bob Thornton hitting these sales, and everything. I can only imagine, and I like my comedy series. The way this one needed to go off the air, and if you'll indulge me for 1 second, I can't do the Billy Bob voice, but I needed it to be where he's on the phone, right? And you'll see this. If he's on the phone and he's talking to the emergency crew, and he says, you got to get an ambulance out here right now. We've got a man crushed. And they say, is he breathing? And he looks over and the phone drops from this guy's hand. And he says, or they say, you can do CPR. And he says, he's not breathing. We can't do CPR. And right after that, I needed Billy Bob to say, good Lord, I got to get to Forever 21. I got to get a new pair of pants. And I needed the screen to go black and that beautiful Landman music to hit. And we go out with our executive producers.
No, I mean, I think Drew, you're a taller guy, just like many true Drews. So you're like 6'4", and
on what he's wearing.
And we did have Billy Bob in the office for a day, so you got to take a look at him in person. Super nice guy. I can't say enough. Went around, talked to everybody, thanked them for use of the office. Just super, super good dude. But he is more of a dynamically compact gentleman. He's I was on a smaller frame. I mean, I like his hat more selection. I think that's where the conversation needs to be. The stocking cap with the hat over it. That's more the focal point.
Let me tell you, we've appreciated having both of you on. You didn't have to take time to do this, and it means so much that you did. I know that everybody listening out there today will enjoy this episode. If you haven't registered for NAPE, what are you doing? Get on it while you can.
Yeah, please. NAPEexpo.com has the full schedules. Big thanks to Julie for being one of the best NAPE committee chairs that I've ever worked with. I can't say enough about how many resources she's pulled together for us at NAPE to put together a schedule that's probably one of the best that I've ever worked on.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate being able to talk about what it is that we do, that we're involved with right now, what we're passionate about. And you guys are obviously excellent advocates for what we do. Jerris, you're Landman too.
Yes, I am. So it's been great, Julie. Thank you for coming on. And to one of the Drews, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Absolutely. We'll hold on to that one.
Great. Thank you guys so much. This has been an absolute pleasure. This has been the Real Deal Landman Show, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.